I will now call this audiovisual conference special board meeting of the Harlingen Board of Trustees to order. We do have a quorum, so we'll get started. First on the agenda is a public audience for agenda topics, I'm sorry. Do we have public comments for agenda topics, Denise?
No, sir, there are no requests for public comments for agenda topics.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I don't know if there was a roll call, but I just want to let you know that Nolan Pettis is on the call. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Doc. Next, we'll move on to public audience for non-agenda topics. Do we have public audience for non-agenda topics, Denise?
No, sir, there are no requests for public audience for non-agenda topics.
Okay, thank you. Next item, approval of a declaration of emergency for Vernon Middle School. Mr. Julio Cavazos.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. James, Dr. Noyola, board members. So agenda item number 5 is an approval of declaration of emergency at Vernon Middle School. Let me share this document here real quick with you. This is the agenda item for the approved declaration of emergency at Vernon. Over the weekend, we had major pipe burst which created a fire and flooding at Vernon Band Hall and choir areas. We're bringing forward this declaration of emergency in order to bypass our normal bidding requirements and allow administration to proceed and hire the necessary contractors to get the project done as quickly as possible. We have filed an insurance claim on this accident, and the adjusters have been at the campus. We're certainly recommending the board approve this, and this is allowed in accordance with Education Code Section 44.031H under the purchasing guidelines. So we're asking the board to approve this emergency order so we can proceed and do what we need to do to get that school open as soon as possible. We recommend approval. Any questions from any of the board members?
Mr. President, I move for approval.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Powers and a second by Dr. Muniz. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Cavazos. Next, we have item number 6, report by Estrada Hinojosa and Company, Inc., financial advisors on final pricing results for Series 2020 refunding bonds. Mr. Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. James, Dr. Noyola, board members. So agenda item number 6 is a presentation by Bobby Villarreal, our financial advisor from Estrada Hinojosa. He's going to brief the board over the results of the refunding for 2020, the bonds that we refunded in 2020. And we did this back in May, which said I had time to bring them forward. So we're going to bring this item forward and another agenda item, another administrative report after this. So I'm going to hand it over to Bobby to go over his presentation. Bobby.
Good evening, board. Dr. Cavazos, Dr. Noyola, and board president Jainez and the rest of the board. Good evening. Good to be with you. Julio, do you want me to share my screen? Is that how you want me to do this?
Yes, if you can share your screen, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So back in May, we priced a refunding for you about $63 million. We refunded those bonds, and we'll just go over who the financing team was. Of course, Estrada Hinojosa was a financial advisor, Northern Rose Fulbright, Bond Counsel, Frost Bank was the senior underwriters, and of course, this was the permanent school fund guaranteed issuance. And so the plan of finance, these are the bonds that we refunded. These are the 2010 A bonds and the 2010 B bonds. And what we did was we refinanced about, if you see the net cash flow here, that you had existing debt service of about $5.3 million a year. When we refunded, essentially in this blue column, we were getting about $610,000 of savings throughout the life of the bonds. So it was approximately, in real dollars, $12.2 million in real savings, and in net present value savings, it was $10.4 million. And just so you know, the summary of this pricing, of course, what we said there, the actual dollar amount was 12.2 million. The net present value, of course, was 10.4 million. the percentage savings of the refunded bonds was 14%, which is a tremendous number. The average coupon of all the bonds that were out were 4.35%, and essentially we got about a true interest cost of 2.2% interest for the life of the new bonds. So essentially, the interest rates got cut in half, and that was priced on 5/20, and of course we closed 6/24. And just so you know, when we first came to you with this refunding opportunity was for callable bonds in August 5th. They were August 15th bonds, so that means we had 90 days was the earliest we could refund them, which would have been 5/15, and so that date of sale happened on 5/20. And just so if y'all want to recall this, but when we first came to you in February, essentially at that time the market was giving us about 8.7 million in savings, and what happened over time was March 12th. That's approximately where the COVID first occurred, or about the time where I think students, I know my kids, we went to spring break and then never went back to school. So this is about that time period, and the market got volatile on us there. Our 11% savings went down to 6. In April, we continued to monitor, it went down to 7, but things went in our favor in May, and we actually achieved 14% net present value savings as opposed to the 11% we had originally thought we were going to get. So essentially, the average annual savings is about $611,000 for the remaining 20 years of this old debt. And so, that was kind of the summary of that. The ratings for the district, of course, I don't know if you can see this real well, but you were rated by Moody's and S&P as AA3 and AA minus. Of course, you get PSF guarantees with the state of Texas, so that gets you AAA ratings. So essentially, they're very comfortable with your credit. The ratings, those ratings are very good. They indicate a high credit and low risk in their eyes. It's not the top that you can be, but some of the issues that we see or they see in their eyes, according to their calculations, are you have steady tax base growth, you have strong reserves in your fund balance, and this is something that always hampers everybody in South Texas, weak resident incomes, that sort of thing. So those are kind of the issues they see with the credit, but you had a very strong credit, and so we're very happy with that. I know working with Dr. Cavazos and Ms. Julio Cavazos as well and his staff, they were part of the credit ratings meetings and calls, and they provided all this data, and it worked out real well, and we're very pleased, and we hope you are very pleased with the results of that financing. And again, 14% is pretty phenomenal. Most of the time, the industry is pretty happy to get 3 to 5% interest savings. So hitting 14 was a major number, and I think it's a good savings for the district. With that, I don't know if you have any questions.
Does the board have any questions for?
I just want to offer my congratulations on being patient and monitoring the market so that we didn't jump in too soon. So great job, but patience can be difficult.
Yeah, and one of the things too, like, I don't know if y'all recall, but one of the things that the board gives is a parameters order, something that bond counsel provides, and it gives us a window of about 6 months roughly, about 180 days, to monitor the market, get our ducks in a row, make sure we're ready. And then what happens is we go to the market, and if for some reason the market were to go sideways, we stop, we take a breath, and we come back another day. Or if it's a really good market and we need to strike, it gave us the ability with at least minimal or the opportunity to call Julio and the superintendent and say, hey, when we executed this, we made the call to Julio and the superintendent, and they said, yeah, that's perfect. Go for 14%. It's great. let's, because we have 24 hours when we're pricing to get it approved. Otherwise, we have to come back to the board, you know, and it's to get that kind of permission. So the bond parameters, the parameters order is very, very crucial to allowing us and your staff to get the best price for you.
All right.
I guess with that, I'll go ahead and go to the opportunity that's coming.
Before you go there, Bobby, I do want to, appreciate the work that your firm did in refunding this. I mean, these are huge savings for the school district. 14% savings. It's a huge number. So we really do appreciate the work that you all did in refunding this. Again, it's $10 million present value, $12 million over the life of the bonds. Those were excellent numbers, and we strongly appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts. And then
We have
on to the refunding presentation here.
Yeah. So
We-
that's another agenda item, Bobby. We'll let
Oh, I'm sorry.
the president call for that.
Yeah,
Okay.
And, I'll reiterate what Mr. Cavazos said about our appreciation toward you, but I was going to wait till the next presentation. But we'll move on to item number 7, and a presentation by Estrada Hinojosa and Company, Inc., Financial Advisors, on Series 2021 Bond Refunding Opportunity for Interest Savings. Mr. Julio Cavazos.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Jaimes, Dr. Neola, board members. I'm just going to hand it over to Bobby to go over this presentation. This is some new refunding opportunities that we have. It's a smaller size, but it's also some savings that we can generate. So I'm going to hand it over to Bobby to go over the presentation. Bobby.
Thank you, Julio. So if we go to here, these are the existing obligations that you have as a district. So if you see there's 4 outstanding pieces of debt there. And if you look at the call date, these are when you're eligible to refinance. And so right now, the one highlighted is the 2011s, about 6.1 million is callable right now. The other ones, we have to wait. And of course, here's the historical tax rate history of the school district, and the taxable values have consistently been growing at a good pace. And of course, your 131 has now dropped to 117. So, y'all are one of the lowest tax rates, I think, in the, if not the lowest, you're one of the lowest in the region. And so right now, on current market rates, what we're seeing right now, if we were to refund those $6 million bonds, we're anticipating about $972,000 in future value cash flow savings. That's like gross to about 16.8%. Net present value, of course, is a bit smaller, but it's about $935,000, and the percentage savings there is 15.3%. It's not the biggest, but it is real money, and for, again, in this industry, we at least advise clients that if you're getting 3 to 5% savings, it's something you ought to do. And again, this is a short term. It's only about 11 years of debt service left. So that's about 80,000, 80 to 90,000 annually. So about $88,000. And then of course, this is the summary of it. And we're looking again, these are August 15th. So at May 15th would be the earliest that we could go to sell. And of course, like I said, the savings is there. And right now, for that 10-year term, we would be taking 4% bonds and looking at right now 0.90%, 0.9% interest. And that's rates as of about a week ago. And so with that, if the board were so to choose to go forward with it, potentially, I think maybe in your March meeting or another meeting, however the board wants to move forward, again, that parameters order will give us the ability to start the process and get rating agencies and that sort of thing to go through this process again, and hopefully price in May and hopefully close by June. But with that, if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Bob.
can you explain the arbitrage number?
Yeah, it's nominal. What it means is that, like I said, the call date is actually August 15th. So when you refund these are going to be put into an escrow. For argument's sake, if we sold and the bonds are delivered, the new ones, they're going to be held in an escrow for about 3 months until they pay off the old ones. So that little negative arbitrage is just the difference of interest rates, because they're going to be held like in treasuries until the moment you can pay them. So that number actually, if we were literally to sell on August 15th, you would that number would be close to zero. So it's nominal. It's just a kind of a financial accounting issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Anybody else?
May I ask one question, please? Let's see, average annual savings, that's after fees and, expenses to make the transaction, right?
Yeah, all these savings are inclusive of our fee, the Attorney General's fee, your bond counsel fee, underwriting fees, all the fees, nothing out of your pocket. This is all delivered within the bond costs, and all these savings we're reflecting right now, as of 1/4/21, are inclusive. So that is your net savings to you.
Thank you.
Well, part of that, does go to the state, because we do get IFA and EDA dollars. So about 40% of that, the state gets the savings, we get 60%. So, and that's, also part of the savings.
Let me ask you a question. So the earliest we can put this on our agenda would be in March?
I would suppose so. I would defer to the superintendent Julio, I guess, but this was just a preliminary schedule. It can change.
Yeah, we have some time, to put it on the agenda, because the earliest that we can sell, Bobby, is in May, right? I mean, so.
Right.
Yes, and of course you see all that legwork that happens on all those dates. So, yeah, so May 15th is the earliest date to sell.
What's your forecast on these interest rates between now and May?
Right now, and this number has a cushion in it, but at this moment, I mean, as you recall, what we showed you last year in the post pricing, right? The market got pretty crazy on us because of COVID. But for right now, our desk is fairly comfortable that this shouldn't move much more than 50 basis points in either way. But again, when we have if we have that parameters order, we can always not pull the trigger and hold off until a better day comes. But that's kind of the crucial part about that parameters order.
Good day right now. So, that's terrific news, terrific.
All right. Well, thank you again, Bobby, on behalf of the board and the district for all the work you've done.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Eladio?
Ms. Fleury, did you have a question?
Yes, no, not a question. I would just like to concur with my colleagues. I'm very grateful for the good work that you've been able to do for us and what you're accomplishing. This is significant money, and at a time when we're going to be needing that. And so I commend the board under Julio's direction earlier to go in this manner, and certainly it has proven to be extremely productive for us. So thank you, Bobby. You've done a fine job for us, and I really appreciate that. I'm sure we all do. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleury. Next, move on to item number 8, the budget workshop. Mr. Julio Cavazos.
Thank you, Mr. Jaimes, Dr. Neola, board members, and thanks, Bobby. You don't need to stick around unless if you want to hear the budget workshop.
All right. Well, thank you. Good night, and we'll talk soon.
Good night.
Good night.
Can you all see that?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is our first budget workshop for this 21-22 school year. And really, I'm just gonna go over an overview of what the state controller, what his biannual revenue estimate was. He reported this 2 weeks ago when he came out with a BRE for the 22-23 biennium. This is his comparison of, what they have for 2021 to 2022-23 biennium. Can you all see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in total general revenue monies, let me see. I'm trying to see where my cursor's at. Can you all see my cursor there or no? Here?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, here, it's on this. I'm sorry, I have two screens, so I'm not sure which one is the one that's showing. So total general revenue, monies available in 2021 was $112.44 billion. This is all in billions, compared to 2022-2023 projected 119.58. So he's projecting about a $7.14 billion in general revenue increase. A lot of that through sales tax and online taxes that they started to collect. In 2021, their beginning balance, they had a leftover balance that they were able to use in last year, so 2 years ago, $4.84 billion. So that got carried over into the 2021 biennium. So that was good for that biennium. This year, they're projecting to be like about a $1 billion deficit carryover from the 2021 to 22-23 biennium. So that's a difference of about $5.7 billion, a huge amount there that on the beginning balances. From that total of 118, they need to transfer some monies to the Economic Stabilization Fund and the State Highway Fund, about $5.83 billion, and also some money needed for the Texas Tomorrow Fund, about $270 million. Again, the total amount that they have available for this year, it's $112.53 billion compared to $112.96 billion, so about $440 million less than the previous biennium. Not as bad as what they originally thought. That's what he presented. This is the letter that he sent, that the controller sent to the governor and to the legislators, Speaker of the House, and the other people there. And highlighted a couple of things. Again, for the 2023, the state can expect to have $112.5 billion. Again, it's a 0.4% decrease from the corresponding amount available for the 2021 biennium. So it's a little bit of a decrease. They're projecting again $119.6 billion in total collections in the general revenue funds, and this is projected again to have that to be offset by that negative carry forward of almost $1 billion in that amount there. And again, like I mentioned before, they need to transfer $5.8 billion to the reserves from the oil and natural gas taxes, for the 2022-23 transfer to the stabilization fund. This is page 2. So in addition to those dollars, there's some federal dollars that they are incorporating as well. $98.2 billion in federal income and $52.7 billion in other revenues that are dedicated for a specific purpose. So the total amount that they're projecting to have is $270.5 billion for the appropriations for the next 2 years. Again, this is the estimate that the controller is coming forward with. They're also expecting to have about $11.6 billion at in the rainy day fund, the Economic Stabilization Fund, at the end of 22-23. Some economic growth projections that he has, and they're thinking that the economic growth is going to average about 4.2% annually. They're expecting to have an increase in personal income about 4.8% annually, with compared to an average income about a percent of 12.2% for the 2021. So that's a big increase in personal income. Let's see. Again, they're thinking, the strong online sales and spending on building materials, home furniture, and sporting goods in particular have exceeded their expectations. So there's some good news that they brought forth, a lot better than what they had projected back in July. And again, this is a letter that the comptroller sent to the governor and the state legislature. So in recap, it's not as bad as initially projected back in July 2020. The controller is projecting, that they're going to be at about $11.6 billion, at the end of 22-23 biennium. Again, the economic growth expected to be 4.2% annually. So this shortfall that we're having is not as bad as the 2011 shortfall that we had. I mean, you remember, back about 10 years ago, we were faced with a $5 billion shortfall. For us, it translated to $5 million for our school district. So we had to cut significantly, that particular school year. They still need to add the impact of additional federal stimulus dollars. They're still evaluating that, and there's, sizable amounts that they're thinking they're going to get. So we're hoping that we keep the gains that we gained in House Bill 3 last biennium. We got some significant gains, and we're hoping that we keep those. Enrollment trends are downwards throughout the state. So again, we need to stay conservative with our budget. Some things that I wanted to kind of go over with real quick with the board is our enrollment comparison. Our enrollment over the past 10 years. In 2010, 2011, we're at 18,339. You can see that the changes the year. We topped in 2015, 2016, 18,650. Last year we're 18,346. This year we're at 17,882. So it's a $500 decrease, 500 student enrollment decrease from 1920 to 2021. So a lot of that is due to certainly the COVID situation that we have. So, put this graph here together, and this is just a comparison of enrollment by grade level for 1920 and 2021. Pre-K, the green is last year, 2000. Can you all see it? It's kind of small. I do have a chart in the next slide, but the pre-K 3, kids, in 1920 we had 256. This year we're at 131. So you can see the difference, over the, from 1920 to 2021 by grade level. This is a better way to show it, just the numbers. Again, the pre-K 3 in 1920 we're at 256. 2021 we're 131, so that's a difference of 125 less students. Early education, we're down 16. Pre-K students, down 34. Kinder, 87. First grade, 82. So overall, 491, but the majority is, here in this, pre-K 3 to first grade. That's about 300, 300 plus students. Again, we feel that a lot of that is attributed to the COVID-related situation that we have, that maybe some parents decided to keep their students at home. We're hoping that we can, get those kids back in school next year. But it's important that we analyze this because we need to project enrollment and ADA for next year's budget. So we're trying to come up with a good number for that. Any questions on the enrollment?
I have one, Julio, maybe to you, to Dr. Noyola. I noticed on grades 6 and 7, those are pretty high numbers. Is it homeschooling there also? Or particularly in 7th grade, that seems to be.
So 7th grade was an increase.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So 7th grade in 1920, we had 1315, in 2020, we had 1424. Some of that is due to the private schools, whenever they're, they finish in 6th grade, they enter into our school systems in 7th grade. So that might explain some of the increase there.
Okay.
But yeah, that's an increase.
What about 6th grade? Is there any explanation for that, or just homeschooling?
Yeah, that's typically that transition from elementary to middle school. And so sometimes we tend to see those drops there, just sometimes parents fear about middle school in general. And so we've been working quite a bit with our with our elementary campuses and really creating better transitions for our students, familiarizing them with middle school, familiarizing our parents with middle school, so that they understand really what our middle school programs look like. And so that's been a project that we've been working on now for a few years, and really working a lot more closely with those elementary programs and orienting students so it's not a foreign setting. They've spent 5-6 years at an elementary campus, and so it's a transition. And so we tend to see that at those transition grades. We sometimes will see that in the 8th to 9th grade transition as well. So it's the work that we're doing, to try and familiarize kids.
So Alicia, pardon me, but where are they going? Are they staying home?
Some of them wind up going to some of the charter schools. Some of it is just natural movement. We have that at all levels, but sometimes we tend to see that into some of these newer charter programs that are popping up. And so, we're working that piece to ensure that they're staying with us, and that sometimes it's an unknown fear. And so we've been working with those families, and then offering more of those tours. And I think when we do those things, that's when the families realize that it's still very similar to what they experience in elementary, and still those nurturing environments. But, sometimes that can create a concern for families.
Is that why?
Have we been able to track how many we've lost to charter schools this year?
Yeah, and actually Dolly Garcia does that on a weekly basis. We actually track every student that withdraws, and so we look to see, and so she actually provides us a report on a weekly basis. And some of it is just natural movement. We'll lose some to charter schools, and then we'll gain some from charter schools. So it's this revolving kind of door. Ultimately, they go and they find out, it's not always greener. And so they wind up coming back, but somebody takes their place. And so it's this circular process. But we don't tend to lose numbers for extended periods of time. They'll tend to go for a few months, and then they come back, and somebody else might go. But that's kind of what we tend to see, especially at that 6th grade level. But then we regain them back, and then we add a number of those students at that 7th grade, because we're also gaining from the private schools, from some of our parochials that end at 6th grade. They wind up bringing them back into our school system.
Thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the overall enrollment, the trend throughout the state is downwards. I think, they were looking at 3 or 4% downward throughout the state. So, the state has, seen a big reduction in student enrollment in 2021.
And our biggest focus right now has been in those early childhood grades, and that's across the state where they're seeing the biggest impact in that downward trend has been in those early grades. And there's not mandatory attendance in the pre-Ks, the pre-K 3s. So that's where some of our parents have chosen to keep them at home, in particular through this COVID. And so we've been working on how to bring some of our families back. Those early years are critical. That's been a focus in our district now for a while. And so we anticipate that we're going to have some learning loss there, but we have some really great people. We have a really great program in our district in our early childhood, and so we're already working that process of reaching out to our families that are in those grade levels, so that we can get them back in for the fall.
Are we getting funding for pre-K 3?
We get some funding because of what we got from the state for the pre-Ks.
Any other questions on the enrollment? I have one last slide I wanted to go over with the board. Again, this is an early budget workshop, but we felt it was important to bring at least the controller's thoughts on the budget for the upcoming year and our enrollment trends. But the last thing that we wanted to talk to the board is these COVID-related costs that we've had and state and federal reimbursement. So again, COVID started back in 1920, after spring break, and we had some costs there that we incurred, about $387,000 of total cost. We did purchase some technology-related items and some PPE type of items that we needed in 1920. In 2021, we purchased, quite a bit of technology-related, items, almost, $6.8 million. We have some outstanding commitments, that we have not received the items yet. Another $890,000, we have in commitments. And those are, basically the large purchase order that we have. There's some additional Apple MacBooks that we have on order. So in total, we have spent or committed about $8.1 million. It's a lot of money, when we look at it. And, luckily, the federal government has given us some reimbursement up to 75% of our costs, and we're in the process of receiving some of these items. We have already applied for it. We have started to receive some of the dollars. We haven't received it all, but we're starting to get some federal dollars in. But we expect to receive, approximately $6.2 million in federal reimbursement from different grants. We have a FEMA grant, that is going to pay for most of the 1920 expenditures, about $290,000. That's 75% of that, 387. FEMA takes, a long time in reimbursing, so we still haven't gotten anything yet. We have this connectivity grant, again, it's a federal grant that we purchased the items, and we purchased them at 50%, so 50% came from that grant, and that money's already been received, and we received the merchandise as well. Against some state-issued PPE that we have to book, they gave us those items, but we have to book the value of the PPE, that was about $320,000. This takes the Department of Emergency Management is the grants that we are getting 75% for a lot of our technology-related purchases. Again, $2.9 million, another $275,000, and also this prior period reimbursement program, which is another federal grant we applied for. We expect to receive about $1.4 million in reimbursement. So total reimbursement about $6.2 million. But we purchased a lot of technology-related items that really made us pretty much a one-to-one, with all of our students, and purchased a lot of hotspots, and of course all of the related software and consultant work and that we needed. So without the reimbursement grants, we wouldn't have been able to to spend $8 million. So our net cost to the district is about 1.8, almost $2 million, sizable amount, but we did get a lot of money for those $1.8 million. One other grant that we did receive last year was this elementary secondary grant. It's SR, that's what they call it. We did receive $6.7 million from that grant. However, the state used that at the state level. They used $6.4 million of that, so we only netted $300,000 from that grant. The state used that to be able to make us whole on our state funding as far as ADA for last year. But I do want to notate that we only netted about $300,000. Any questions on that particular slide?
Julio, on some of those pending grants, the reimbursement pending, what's the timeline on those? When can we expect?
They're actually starting to come in. We're expecting a big $3 million one from the Texas Department of Emergency Management, and they go by stages. We're on stage 7, which is the last stage. All we're waiting is for that money to hit our checking account. And it should come in this week, because they said it takes about 7 to 10 days. We checked it last time about, over a week ago, so we should be getting that money in. So we're anticipating that hopefully within the next 2 or 3 months, we'll get most of that.
Mr. President, and I think the celebration, even though the net cost to the district, we are at that 1.8, but that we were able to leverage those additional funds. They've put us on a trajectory that we had always talked about being at. And so just as we move forward, putting our students in a situation where we are going to be in a one-to-one setting, I just see this opportunity as really being one that will transform how we do instruction in our district and how we take these additional tools to be able to support our students. So a big celebration that we were able to take advantage of this opportunity moving forward.
As we've noted, we've closed the gap in a
Absolutely.
lot of areas. Made lemonade, out of lemons.
We're also expecting more federal dollars, as part of the stimulus 2 package that the federal government signed late December. Still waiting for the state to determine, how they're going to distribute those funds. So there should be quite more federal dollars coming our way, or at least the state's way for education.
Julio, I think we'd all like to think that we're on the back end of this pandemic. Is there going to be more opportunities if we continue on this path, going into next year?
For additional grant dollars?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there should be some additional grant dollars that we're constantly looking, seeing what's coming through, through TA. And if there's some availability of federal dollars that we can try to apply for, we will do so. But yeah, we're expecting the stimulus 2 package, which early indications that we've heard is that it's going to be 4 times as big as this $6.7 million. I mean, that's what we heard. So that's quite a bit of money. Now, how the state uses it, we still don't know.
Right. Any other questions from?
I have one question. I think I understood that about 50% of the equipment that we had ordered has come in, and we're waiting on the other part. Did I hear that right?
No, actually, we've received most of the equipment. We have one pending purchase, this $800,000. It's some additional 750 MacBooks that were pending delivery here by the end of February. And that's it. We've received everything else.
Thank you.
Julio, that 0.4 decrease, what were they expecting? Because you said it wasn't as much as...
Originally in July, they were expecting, to be a $5 to $6 billion shortfall. So, it came down to $1 billion, which is not bad. And there's still possibility that number might get better with some new economic indicators, as they, the next couple of months. I'm sure the controller is looking at that. But yeah, in July, it was, pretty grim situation. So, yeah.
All right.
So the only additional piece that I need to add, and so one of the things that we are working on, because obviously the technology is great, and that's going to be an amazing tool moving forward. But one of the things that we're going to have to work on is ensuring that we have a responsible replacement plan for this technology, because it will all come due at some point in time. And so if we want to be able to continue to take advantage of this opportunity, we're going to need to make sure that we have a steady replacement plan for that. And so Julio has already been working through, you'll see through our budget workshop pieces that we're looking at how do we set ourselves up to be able to have a replacement plan in this process. It's something that has hurt a number of districts when they went into a one-to-one. They provided technology to everybody, and then it all came due at one time, and they didn't have a plan to be able to replace it. And so that's something that we're already starting that work on and putting ourselves on a replacement plan to be able to continue to provide this tool to our students. So thank you to Julio, because that's one thing that he's already working through on his budget.
Good job, Julio.
Yeah, thank you. But absolutely, Dr. Yola, I'm glad you pointed that out, that we do need to make sure that in year 4 years from now, that we're able to continue replacing those, that technology.
Thank you, Julio.
That's it, Mr. Chairman. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
If not, thank you, Julio, again. We look forward to future budget workshops. Now we'll move on to item number 9, adjournment to close or executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act for the following purpose. Discuss employment of athletic coordinator, head football coach at Harlingen High School South. We are now in executive session. Okay, we are reconvening into executive session now for the matters discussed in executive session. Consider employment of athletic coordinator, head football coach at Harlingen High School South. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. President, I am enthusiastically approve the recommendation of staff for Coach Israel Gonzalez.
We have a
I
motion by
make that motion.
Mr. Powers. We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second by Dr. Perez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Meeting is adjourned. Welcome home, Coach.